You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth, and it's my goal each week to inspire you to go out and lead purpose-filled lives and own your God-given power. Now, I'm passionate about bringing you true stories of women that are everyday leading in ministry, nonprofits, and business. I am determined to show you that you can find purpose in any area of life. And it doesn't matter what type of business you're looking to start. You can do that in a purposeful manner. It doesn't matter what type of call God has placed on your heart. If you are obedient and say yes and follow His will, He will pave the way. My interview today shows you just that as I take you to Kenya and the OVI Children's Hospital. So let's jump right in, shall we? All right, so today I'm bringing Amy Hehre to you all the way from Kenya. She is the CEO of OVI Children's Hospital. Hey, Amy, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, since we are having technical difficulties, let's jump straight in. And how about you tell everyone what OVI Children's Hospital is?
Yes, absolutely. So we are a hospital for critically ill orphans and vulnerable children. We are full operation 24/7. My husband and I actually live here at the facility and just care for the children as our own. We go out into the communities and rescue them and just try to give them the best possible life for whatever time they have. We absolutely love it. And I've never been happier. And so God has just been so gracious.
And how did you first get started with the Children's Hospital? Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, it's really bizarre. But the first time that I ever even thought about a missional life for myself, I was at a conference, just going on my merry way. I was in a comfortable relationship, didn't have any big, huge life goals at the time. And I reached into a hat and I just grabbed out this question and it said, if you could live any life, like what would it be and why? And I was just like, oh, well, I would love to travel around and give life-saving surgeries and, find vulnerable children. And, it was just kind of this theoretical question. And everyone thought that I was actually talking about my life. And so at this conference, people kept coming up to me over and over and asking me, oh, wow, like your life, tell me more about that. I'm like, oh, no, that's not my life. That was just an icebreaker question. Like if I could have any life, but I don't do anything remotely like that. I was just answering the question. And one person just asked me, if that's the life you want to be living, then why aren't you doing it? And from that moment, I was just so convicted that I dropped my major, my relationship, everything I knew at that time, and just picked up this life that was completely foreign to me. And coming over here and actually seeing the devastation and seeing children and the faces and the lack of access to healthcare, that was when God came to me with the dreams and the visions for where I am today.
And you did this at a very young age. So can you just share with the listeners how old you were when you first had this idea? And then also how long it took you to implement the vision?
Yeah, absolutely. So the very first time that I ever had like the vision, the call, I was 20 years old. And from there, I went full force at it. I kept coming to Kenya as many times a year as I could. I was in college at the time, so I would just write buku's papers and research, trying to get trips funded. And at the end of it, ended up with a whole plan for this hospital. And at 22, I had really the plans for the organization. By 24, I actually actively had the ministry. I had the title deed here for the hospital. And by 25, I was here living, operating the hospital, and we were at full capacity. So it's been 2 years now. I'm 27. And so it's been a whirlwind, honestly.
That is amazing. And I'm always intrigued because so many people have a call on their life that they don't know what to do with, or how to do it, or how to implement it. And here you've done this in 7 years at an incredibly young age. You've done things that people dream their entire lives about doing. So what do you feel was for starters, the biggest impetus, the biggest driving force to put all fear aside and chase this? And secondly, what was the scariest part of putting all fear aside and chasing this?
Yeah, absolutely. So fear is something that I feel like I'm very accustomed to. I've grown up, even when I was a small child, my mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 5 years old. And so I just grew up with a lot of anxiety and depression, and just a very realistic view of the world. But as crazy as that is, and as weak as I felt, and as much as I resented that my entire life, it actually became a big blessing, because these fears and these anxieties, they were credible. You know, God gave me something worth that sadness, worth those fears. And just it's bizarre, but actually this calling has just been such a healing and redemptive thing for me. I would say the scariest thing was the initial call. I had no idea what that meant. I was single at the time. My husband and I, it's a long story. We met at summer camp when I was 15, always friends, but I actually started at this alone, and this was a big reason we got married. But yeah, chasing after this, it was terrifying. I was a 4.0 student, a perfectionist. When I changed my major, I failed a class my first semester. I failed another class my second semester. And I remember just being like, God, like, why would you call me to something that I'm literally failing at? Like, surely this is not what you want. And I just remember God saying, you know, this is what is going to qualify you by man, but, you know, for them to bring you these children. But ultimately, you're just going to bring them before me, and I'm the ultimate healer. And that was like such an encouragement to me, that literally God had paved the way. And everything that I'd fought for my whole life, just trying to prove myself, trying to feel worthy, I found that the less worthy I was, and the less capable I looked, and the less qualified I appeared for what I was doing, too young, not smart enough, whatever it was just pointing more glory to God for him coming through. And it just gave me such a sense of pride for my failures and for my shortcomings. God just completely shifted my mindset, and that was the biggest part.
Girl, I am over here writing as quickly as I possibly can write. You have some powerful words, and you use your words to really be the truest form of an influencer. And I know that influencer is this buzzword nowadays. Everyone aspires to be an influencer. But the impact that you have with your words and with the reach of social media, and being able to be in Kenya and share and blog about your journey, where along the way did you realize the impact of being able to share what you were doing on social media and be able to influence others to come along your journey?
Yeah, so whenever I first was called to this, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I tried to go about it in a very personal way. I mean, I sent out like letters to every single person I knew. I had no money. I found this building and this endeavor that was going to be somewhere towards $500,000. And I literally had nothing. I had nothing but credit card debt and student loans. I was in PA school at the time. And so I just felt so much faith in my heart that God was going to do it. But I didn't really know how he was going to do it. And so I just sent out all these letters. I kept it very small scale. I was like, oh, all I need is, 200 and some odd people to send me just a little over $1,000. I had it all figured out. And then nothing, sent out these letters, complete and total vulnerability, and got nothing in return. I got one rejection letter like a month later. Laughs, people weren't showing up. I was not a hometown hero at this time. There was no newspaper article that says girl has faith that God will provide hospital. It was just a lot of rejection and a lot of confusion and a lot of pushback. I remember even just influential people in the church telling me, this building is your Ishmael. You need to wait for Isaac. And I was crushed. I was devastated. Here was, a vision that God had given me so clearly. I'd put it down on notebook paper. I turned it into a blueprint. So 4 years later, we were just driving down the road on a motorbike. We were here for the Christmas season just to build like a little play area park for the kids for Christmas. And we drove past this building. So this building I'd drawn the very first time I was here, when I was 20 years old, God gave me just this very detailed vision of what this building was going to look like. So I wrote it down on notebook paper. When I got engaged, Rob encouraged me to turn it into a blueprint. And then from there, that was kind of our tangible goal. So Rob and I both knew that blueprint by heart. And so that's why it was so perplexing and just, such a sign from God when we saw this building, and it was down to every little detail. The only difference was this is a 5-story building and the one I had drawn was 3 stories. But when you see the picture side by side, it's just, it could take your breath away. And, that was my first miracle, was seeing the building itself. The second miracle was God just coming through and funding it. I literally went from someone who had lost their mind, had no support, had gotten into this agreement with lawyers here in Kenya so that I could do this, a really right way. And, it was tears. It was awful. It was every single day, just trying to trust God more than I trusted all these voices of doubt. And what ended up happening is, 2 weeks after the deadline for this building, the price had gone up. I was so discouraged. I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just need a little more time. Just give me a few more weeks. And God literally came through in the form of an anonymous donor who I know his name, but I've never seen his face. I know that I don't know him, and just came through and literally didn't even know what he was doing when he gave us to the penny what we needed for our legal fees and our building. Had no idea, just wrote a random number on this check. And that was my miracle. And to get back to the original question, like, that is why I choose to influence people. If you had asked me before that miracle what I would want to do, it would be here, rocking babies, living a quiet life, no one really knowing what I'm doing. But when I knew what I went through to get here and how impossible it was, and failing courses and getting rejection, and just I thought to myself, so many other people are called to things just as big as this, and they're turning away because they're mistaking these roadblocks from Satan as signs from God. And I have to be a person of influence. I have to tell my story, not for me. If I get the glory, I've missed the point, but so that other people can do this and greater all over the world. And how neat that I can influence so much farther than just my own little corner by inspiring someone else to go after theirs.
Girl, that is huge. It is amazing. And I love that you mentioned that people mistake Satan's roadblocks as God, pointing you in a different direction. I think oftentimes people are very quick to give up on something because they feel like, oh, that didn't work out. So I love that. And
yes.
So as far as your influencer life and sharing this journey on social media, you live what I can only imagine to be a very stark contrast of your pictures are beautiful on Instagram, your stories and your words are poignant and they inspire emotion, they call people to action, and yet you're living in the midst of the most terminal of a child's life, the most terminal child, hanging in the pendulum of life and death. How do you, I love that you find the beauty in it.
Yeah.
But how do you each and every day continue to see the beauty in it when you are surrounded by heaviness?
Sure. So, I mean, the devastation is present and it's real. And I feel like if you ever get used to it, you're doing the wrong thing. You can't be in this field of work and not not have empathy and heart. But what I would say is that those really dark places where you think you absolutely could not survive, like God dwells within that place. And so actually getting into those places and being pushed to where I thought, I could just never ever handle it, has actually been some of the most joyful places. But just to give an example, there was a season here, actually, right at when I had started my business. I was going on this new journey. I was so excited to, self-fund and to have these new supporters. And we had just a wave of death. We were getting terminal child after terminal child after terminal child. There were children we were losing that we didn't expect to lose. And, I just was like, God, how on earth am I going to wake up every morning and do this? And he just gave me literally just this vision, just this so clear vision of heaven, and just being there and entering the gates and seeing for the first time thousands upon thousands upon thousands of children. And something about my heart is I can never have enough children. I don't know what it is about me, but even when I think that, surely I can't love more than 50 kids. Here comes number 55, number 56, number 57. Now we're at hundreds and thousands of kids who have come through our home. And God just gave me this vision of an eternity with them. I've literally been their only earthly mother that they've ever known. And here, if they all were to live to be 80 years old, then, my heart and my mind could only hold so many people. But because I do have them for such a short time, God just gave me this vision of having more children than anyone else for all of eternity. And what a blessing and what a gift. Like, I literally get cold chills talking about it myself, that, God just knows my heart so well that he's thinking more for my eternity than I could choose for this really small part of my life.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have chills while you're speaking of it. I'm just sitting here like it's the most beautiful, beautiful vision, and what an amazing blessing to be blessed with, to be able to love on them and give them the purest form of joy that they have ever encountered in their life. So I'm so grateful for you doing that. I do want to touch on, you talked about your business. You launched a business. You and I are both in the same business. We both have skincare franchises. And that's how I met you. I literally, when you came into the company, and for those of you at home, this girl not only sets her mind to go build a hospital for orphans in Kenya at the tender age of 22, but she also joined our company and absolutely shattered records. I had been in the business for almost 3 years at this point, and everyone was like, who is this gorgeous blonde girl that is killing it in Kenya? So, how exactly, because it is like a major contrast. And I have people, I'm a very purpose-driven entrepreneur. I'm a very cause-driven entrepreneur, and I'm very ambitious in the sense that I firmly believe that the more we can do in business, the more we can support the kingdom of God, the more orphanages we can build. In my case, the more transitional living homes for trafficked individuals. But I know some people struggle with that. So how do you find the happy medium between selling skincare and building a sales team of others who sell skincare, and also saying, this is my actual purpose on life is these babies in this hospital? How do you find that happy balance medium?
Yeah. And I didn't understand it when I came into it, actually. When God gave this to me, I always say I hung my head over a toilet with anxiety for 2 weeks when I waited for someone to fly me my kit. I was just like, what have I done? God, like dying children and eyelashes and skin, and like, how are we ever going to make this work? I was just so confused, genuinely. But I just knew so full and well. My husband and I were in this position where, we had tried to live off of our savings. Rob had worked for a year and a half in the US, and we'd saved up, but then it came up to where we adopted our daughter, and we ended up with all this credit card debt. And that's very confining, and when you're going and you're rescuing children who have been locked in a room for 7 years or on their last moment, like, I don't care, CEO, CE, whatever, you don't want to take money. Like, I could have justified a salary, but I wanted every single penny that I had to go to those children. And so I was like, how am I going to get a way out? And when God gave me this opportunity, I just remember looking out the window and physically just seeing these women who were, scrubbing floors and carrying buckets and baskets on their heads, just loaded down, and knowing the only thing that separated me and them was I had the social security number that would allow me to work remotely and to do all of this. And how could I look out my window every single day and see people who are working for a handful of change, like struggling to impact even their families, and deny an opportunity? We literally met someone who could fund maybe 20 hospitals, 20 more than what I'm doing for what they were making. And so I was like, okay, I have no idea how this is going to work out, but somehow we're going to do it. And the way it assimilated was just really beautiful. And just, God has just revealed to me so much that one of the biggest lies that Satan uses, I think, is that he makes us feel guilty for having finances and wanting finances, because money in this world, it is power and it is influence and it is the potential to house and clothe and feed and nurture. And so what better than to make someone feel guilty for that enabling piece so that we can't do anything? But I strongly believe that, like, God does want that money and that wealth in the hands of his people to do his work. And so that's really what motivated me. And it sounds bizarre. There are literally times where I was monitoring a kid in the NICU who was on oxygen, and I'm selling a lash business at the same time. And I mean, it sounds crazy. But God really just showed me that my doubts were my doubts, and it was rooting from my pride, not, and it wasn't conviction. I learned that there's a difference in conviction and fear. Conviction, God speaks over you. There's something better, have peace. Like there's weight, there's something in forward, and fear is, you're going to fail at this. You're not worthy. People are going to think you're crazy. People are going to think you're annoying. And anything I was facing in that initial time was fear. Those were not words that I knew God was speaking over me. And so I was really able to just push through it, close my eyes, and just reach out to other people who were like me. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just really excited about it, and
Yeah.
I know that you have this dream for the world too. And, like, why don't we just try it? There's no risk in it. And so from there, I just learned to get other people to break out of their own misconceptions and to just go for it, because I would have never done it. I would have never chosen myself.
Are you thinking right now that you've heard enough, you have what it takes, and you're ready to start a side hustle? Well, girl, I think now is as good of time as ever that you jump over to the-powerproject.com/powerful business. Read my story there about how I got started in this business, and then fill out that email form, and I would be happy to schedule a call with you and discuss more in depth what it is that I do. That's the-powerproject.com/powerful business. And, I think that there are two things that you speak to there. And I heard recently on a podcast about that there's so much money in the world, right? And God tells us to be good stewards. And we know what we intend for our money and our finances. We know that we're using it to make a greater impact, but we don't know that someone else in a different part of the world that could get that money is going to be a good steward and go build orphanages and aftercare homes and make an impact and further the kingdom. So, that, like you say, that drive, that ambition, that desire to build the businesses and have the finances, we know what we're going to do with that money, so we can rest well with that at night. So I think that's really interesting in the first part. And the second is, I discovered my purpose and my calling after I was in this business. And I struggled in the beginning with, how do I
Mm.
tell people to buy skincare? How do I tell people to start a skincare business when I have women that I see that haven't slept under a roof in 90 days? And
Sure.
how do I push this business when I'm seeing so much tragedy and trauma? And I will tell you this, I was at our home office back in January, and Melissa King had spoken, and she's a very purpose-driven business owner in our company. And afterwards, I spoke
Mm.
with her and I said, I've struggled. I said, I've made my business small because I felt like my cause, my passion, my purpose was such a greater thing to promote in life rather than my business. And she said, yes, but God's entrusted you with this business. And there are other people that want to make an impact just like you. And you can build an entire team
Mm.
of purpose driven business owners that are making an impact in life and using these funds for the good. And I see that you've done that, and you've done it so, so beautifully. I mean, your team just radiates God's joy. I have called this a skincare ministry from the very beginning because of the
Mm.
incredible people that God has brought into my life.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I know that what you're doing is absolutely a skincare ministry.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, I do want to touch on, you have a new ambassador program with OVI. I really want to get that out there and let you talk a little about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, we actually have over 400 people all over the US and throughout the world growing. We started in the US and then opened our doors. Um, and these are just people who are committed to helping us spread the word back home. So my husband and I, we are based here year round. We get to travel home from time to time, but it's never, guaranteed. And so we really depend on people to keep that strength and that enthusiasm for what we do going stateside and in these other countries. And so it's funny, but we actually do run it a lot like the business, in the form that people just, they host and they have these informationals and teach people about what we do. They point them to sponsorship, they point them to volunteer trips, and it's just a really amazing community of people who are just not afraid to share and just want to use that boldness with whatever platform they have um, to help advocate for our children.
That's awesome. If someone wants to become an ambassador with the organization, where do they need to go? How do they sign up for that?
Yeah, so our website is ovichildrenshospital.org. And there's a Become an Ambassador tab on there. It's like a 45-second application that's super, super quick. And then we can plug you right in, just right from the very beginning. So
That's incredible. I do have to ask you this because of the way you run your organization and your business. Do you come
mhm.
from a line of entrepreneurs? Do you have any entrepreneurial training?
My father was a businessman. But no, I really don't. I don't have anything formal. Medicine, of course, is what I did in college, but it's just been, I think that the biggest part of business is relationships, being kind to people, being invested in their lives and their passions. And if you can get excited and if you can believe in what you do, I think that's just been seriously the key to my success, because I'll tell my team time and time again, I can't find a valid enough excuse, to not tell someone about this business, because if they're broke, they need the business. If they have money, they need the business. Like, it's just, I love it. It's changed my life. It's changed my circumstances. It's taken me from being like, how are we going to fund this hospital, to we are going to fund 88 hospitals around the world, and getting to have that confidence and that mindset and getting to see a pre-established business model that I can even kind of mimic, for my own nonprofit. It's been brilliant and it's been a blessing. And so I just take it for what it is. And I think that if you can get to that place where you're doing what you love so much that there's not a bit of shame in it, that is when, all business training aside, like, that's what you need, is just, to be able to truly believe in what you're giving someone. And I fully do.
Girl, you are incredible. I am so grateful that because of this business, our paths have crossed. Now, am I going to get to see you at convention this year?
Yes, I have my ticket. I will be there.
Oh my gosh,
I
I'm
am
so
so
excited.
excited.
Yes, we're going to meet up for a cup of coffee and so that I can hug your neck and tell you thank you for everything you are doing. Where can everyone find you on social media?
Yeah, so I am on personally, it's just Amy, Amy Hehre, Hehre. And then our Instagram is OVI Children's Hospital, and same for our Facebook. So active
Awesome.
on all of it. Yes.
I will post that in the show notes because I think everyone needs to be following your journey and getting involved. And I love your heart. I love your obedience. And girl, what do you know your Enneagram numbers?
Oh my word. I would like you to guess, but no. I have probably the strongest recipe. I have I'm equal points in 1, 3, and 4, and I think that's terrifying. But
No, I think
very
that is
strong.
where, yeah, I think that's where the magic happens. I'm sitting here and I'm like, you're not just an achiever, you're an activator. You go out and you make the ideas happen. And so I think the world needs many, many, many more people that are willing to go out and be the literal change. And I'm so glad that this came together and our Wi-Fi was stable enough for us to have this
Oh,
conversation.
that is a miracle too. Yes,
Eh,
absolutely.
I know that it's late for you and you have babies in bed, so I'm going to let you go rock your babies and just go back to Kenya and be the blessing and the joy that is everyday life there at OVI. Thanks so much for joining me.
You guys, when I tell you that it is my goal to inspire you to go out and lead purpose-filled lives, I can't think of a more fitting candidate to do just that. If Amy has not encouraged you today to get up off your couch and chase whatever dream and whatever calling God has placed on your heart, then you might not be listening to all the signs that God is sending you in life. Do me a favor, go support OVI Children's Hospital. Go check out their website. I am putting a link in the notes, but it is ovichildrenshospital.org. You can become an ambassador over there on the ambassador tab. And you can follow Amy on Instagram and Facebook for more inspiration. As always, if you like what you heard today, write a review, rate us, and share us on all forms of social media. Go tell your friends about us, you guys. I can't wait to chat with you next week, but until then, go out and live your best purpose-filled life.